be there if you do, just as a little extra layer of help, hopefully. All right, so we're recording, we're arriving. Yeah. Kaisa, can I invite you to help us arrive, continue arriving?
Yeah, I would love to. Welcome, everyone. Good to be together again. For this week's arriving, I would ask you to take again like pen and paper, just something simple that you can scribble. Well, we're actually going to draw a hand. So if you have like a post-it note, that's not going to work. So grab a newspaper or something that it's big enough. I think I can squeeze mine in a small one, but just piece of paper. And while you grab that, I'm going to see if I can get my screen share going. If not, that's no big deal. It's working, yeah. Okay. And now the right screen. So just settle in. Again, like always with this, you can close your camera or leave it open, doesn't matter at all. This is just time for you to arrive a little more fully, all the parts of you. So settle down, sit comfortably. You can close your eyes and gently place your hands on your belly. Do you notice your chest and stomach rising to the rhythm of your breath? Observe the filling of your chest and stomach with air as you inhale. And on your exhale, slowly release all the air out. Start paying attention to your feelings, thoughts, and your body. What do you notice? Do you notice any tension, pain, or tightness in your body? You can put your hand on a place where you feel some of those discomforts, if that's the case. Does anything worry you or make you afraid? If so, where can you feel it in your body? What else do you feel? Excitement, ease, contentment. How does that feel in your body? After a few deep breaths, move your hands to your lap, palms facing down. And let this turning of your hands be your way of telling God about your wish to turn any worries or concerns that you might have to God. Give the worries to God and say to Him in your own words quietly or silently, I let go of this frustration. I let go of this anger. I let go of this fear. I let go of this worry, guilt, pressure, or whatever it is that you want to let go. And picture placing it into God's hands. As you do. Don't rush. Keep going as long as you need to do that for now. Now, once you feel that your mind and body have come to a moment of stillness, turn your palms up as a sign that you are ready to receive from God. Relax and imagine placing your hands, palms facing up, into God's caring hands. Feel how you are being held and supported by God. You don't need to go now anywhere or do anything else. What you are doing, just be, you are safe. Enjoy the feeling of God holding your hands in His hands and loving you. You can trust that you will be taken care of. And for a moment, place your worries and fears into His hands. Tell God in the quiet of your heart that you are ready to listen and to receive. Wait for His response in silence. You might feel like He has something to say to you, or that He simply wants you to know that He cares for you and that you are safe with Him. And finally, lift your hands to your heart and thank God for being with you and loving you. Then you want to open your eyes gently and take that little piece of paper that you found and place your non-dominant hand on the paper, because you're going to use your drawing and writing hand to trace the outline of your palm facing down. So your hand and palm facing down. So just a quick tracing of the hand. With a pencil, pen, and a piece of paper. A quick one. And inside the outline of your palm facing down, name one thing or create an image that represents something that you want to place in God's caring hands at this time. Then go ahead and flip your hand and trace the outline of the hand, palm facing up. You can do it next to it or overlapping it on the next page. It really doesn't matter at all. Wherever. inside of that outline of the hand, name a sense or feeling of God's nearness with you, or create a quick sketch or image or color. What it feels like to have God near you right now. Open your palm and hold it out for your other hand to draw a shape of the cross on it. As you slowly draw with your pointing finger vertical line from top to down, say silently, Jesus our friend. And as you draw a horizontal line from left to right, say, be close. Close your hand into a fist and cover it with your other hand as a way to seal the blessing. Amen. If you want, you can pop a word of something that you felt or sensed in your body. Anything at all, really, from your experience in the chat, but it's not a requirement ever. So you're welcome to do that. Kindness, belonging, held. God holds my hands and I look into God's eyes. Warm, metabolizing. Loyalty. God's smile. Blessed. Release. Held. Seeing. Breathing in tandem. A kiss on the forehead. Hope. Compassion and patience. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Tara.
So thank you. What a wonderful way to arrive. So in a minute, we're going to enter into some teaching and some conversations around shifting power. But before we do that, as you read and heard talked about this week in your resources, but before that, I want to invite Ellie just to say a few words about the posture and perspective that we want to encourage toward the reading materials and any other materials that we offer.
Yes. Thank you, Tara. So the reading for this week brought up some thoughts for me, which I have shared with Tara. And I'm especially thinking about Flo Paris Oakes's paper. Tara and I included this reading as part of your assignment for a good reason. Flo, who was a student in our class last year, is passionate about children's connections to God and about righting the wrongs of the past. She really articulately addresses questions that I also wonder about for children. And thank you, Kaisa, for opening up a discussion about this on our WhatsApp group. However, as an example for you, there were places in her paper that made me pause. For example, I'm not comfortable with her broad generalizations about white evangelicals, which I believe are raw and unfiltered. And Flo herself, in conversation with Tara, has admitted that this paper is a work in process and needs some refining. Underneath, I hear her deep desire to protect and nurture children's spiritual growth. So I'm not sure I even needed to say this today because Tara and I both know that you are thoughtful and discerning people, and you don't need our permission to question or to wrestle with what you are reading. But we both just wanted to empower you to do so. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Yeah, her, surfacing those kind of systemic questions is so important. And we by no means want to minimize that there are questions of justice as it relates to our societies more broadly and impacts on children in particular. And we encourage and cultivate and are in the process of cultivating readings as a conversation. I had a seminary professor who talked about finding certain authors or spiritual writers from the past or present as conversation partners, and I have tucked that away and love that perspective. And so, yeah. And so with that, it's a perfect segue, actually. I'm going to drop a link into the chat. One of the things that we are trying is this is just a simple Google document, and I've entered in the date of each class. And we just want to invite you to, as you have questions, as you have resources that you want to share, as you have wisdom and wonderings, this is a great place to sort of park those so that we can preserve them. And uh, probably more helpfully in the conversational kind of way as we're dialoguing together, the WhatsApp group that Ellie created. If you haven't had a chance to join that, you're invited. By no means do you need to do so, but it's a way to kind of keep the conversation going, of, oh, this gave a question to me, or this really hit deeply. Kaisa mentioned the story of the table at the Vacation Bible School that was so beautifully uh, set with cloth napkins and flowers and just that invitation. I felt as I read that 6 months ago or whenever I first read it, that I felt my childhood self say, "Oh yes." Yeah. And I felt my adult self say, I can't wait to offer something like this with children. So there's that link. The link should allow you to edit, so to make your additions. So that's there. And with that, I want to now go ahead and share my screen, and let's move into a conversation around bearing witness to a child's life with God um, as we attend to posture and power and presence. And I'm going to do a few housekeeping things. Move your lovely faces over. All right. So we begin with safety and the role of creating a safe space with a room with a window. It's a public space. There's safe touch with permission. For example, a hand on the shoulder, or for example, a blessing at the end of a session. There's loving distance. That's physical space. And it's also emotional space of noticing when your own story or wants or needs or fears are getting stirred as a child shares, that you have a loving distance so that this child has spacious breathing room to not be abandoned in what they're sharing, but also not to be, and this is a strong word, but I hope you hear it with kindness, not to be invaded, not to be crowded with our emotions or responses to what they're sharing. And in all things, we're shifting as much as we can. We're taking active choices to shift power to the child that we're meeting with. So power is kind of the elephant in the room, meaning everyone arrives with their own power and agency and authority. And can we just say that that's not a bad thing? It's actually God-given, that power of choice, that power to say yes or to say no or to say I'm not sure. And it's a flow. It's an active dynamic. So it's not a static thing. So we start by acknowledging power, and we recognize that in our culture, in our larger culture, in our religious contexts, we recognize that power isn't free necessarily. So there are patriarchal structures, for example. There are ways that masculine ways of being are given priority, and this happens in overt ways and it happens in subtle ways. And there are other aspects of power around dominant or marginalized people, and certainly in as relates to this conversation, we as adults simply hold more power than the children that we are meeting with. And this happens in all kinds of conscious and unconscious ways. We are bigger than they are physically. Children expect to defer to adults. And even when they are sort of pressing those boundaries and being curious, that it's always in the context of the adult has more raw power than they do. And so we think about this, and we think about how we can begin to moderate that, to open up room, to open up the possibility of more freedom for the child in our conversations. And here, as we think about power as well, we think about what or who is our power serving. So with that, as we host children, we are using our God-given agency to invite children into this space, to set up the table, to set up the blanket, so to speak. And so we use that invitationally, and then we begin to shift it to the child, inviting them to choose how and when to enter the space. And another layer that's really important in this is we recognize that value judgments can be expressions of a disordered power. So that value can be in a sort of spiritual hierarchy in our mind of judging certain stories that the children may share. We may say, oh, this is very good. This is very spiritual. Oh, this is less important. And it can go the other way. It can be when we notice ourselves overly praising a story. And so when you notice that happen, and notice I say when, this is a learning and an unlearning. So go kindly and gently with yourself. But when you notice that that sort of judgmental or rating system kind of happening in your mind. See if you can take a breath, and in your soul take a step back, and let there be more oxygen in the room. Let there be more room for what the spirit might be saying to you and to the child. So rightly ordered power begins with humility. We're cultivating humility at all times, as we're listening with children, and hopefully that spills over into the whole of our lives. And I love Dallas Willard's 3 Ps of humility: never push, never presume, never pretend. So we aren't pushing children to go where they don't want to go or at a pace that they don't want to go. We are giving our power away by by getting at the elbow of the child, by inviting them to choose which tools they interact with, and we have a mindset of checking our motives. Where is the power? Keeping our sort of our pulse point on where is the power in the moment, and what is it, what or who is it serving. And as Lacey talked about in the video, seeing those moments when we take it back, and use our agency to speak an important truth that we want the child to leave with, or to safeguard the sacredness of the space. So let me go back and just underscore: never push, never presume, never pretend. Those are so significant. So places to notice power. It starts with our communication, the forms that we may give to parents, the way that we describe spiritual accompaniment to caregivers and to the children. I'm not here to teach. I'm not here to disciple. I'm here to listen to whatever you want to talk about. And we notice and acknowledge any unbalanced power dynamic. We talked about this a moment ago, but just we keep that pulse point on recognition that there is an unbalance. That's the status quo. And so we're working to shift that toward the child, toward more spaciousness. We begin to notice assumptions that we have when we sit with children. For me, I was raised in a very, it maybe in the last lingering breaths of children should be seen and not heard, and so and adults should be respected always at all times with no exceptions. And so when I meet with children, I must notice when I think, oh, they're being a little presumptuous or something like that. And what is that? It's that assumption that I should invite first rather than this child should be free to share. Yeah. Or when I feel compelled to say, oh, what a good drawing, or oh, I love your drawing, instead of, so you see, I've gone into a value judgment there, right? So instead of saying, can you tell me more about this drawing? What was it like to draw that? I noticed you drew really fiercely. Can you tell me more about that? What about this color here? So do you see the difference between a value or these more open questions that let the child make meaning and invite the child to recognize and explore? So again, it's all serving this empowering of children. I love how Lacey writes, if we want relationship rather than rule, we must shift the power. That's one that, of many highlights in spiritual conversations, that's one that I have gone over many times. So what does that look like? The child determines how long the session is, depending on their age and what they have to share that day. That could be anywhere from 20 to around 45 minutes, give or take. Consider sitting on the floor if that's physically possible for you and for the child. If not, find ways that you can be level with one another. And then there's the magic of the third thing. This is where, and we'll talk a lot about this as we go on, but this is where physical tools can be so helpful. So building Jenga or Lego towers, or forming something with clay, or using watercolors, or even some pictures to choose from, so something, this third thing, so that we're not sort of grilling the child, but rather gazing together at this third thing and engaging it together. Another way that we shift power, and here's where we are, here's another example of where we're using our power to at the service of the child's freedom. We create a rhythm or a predictable pattern. And again, there can be exceptions to this, but so that the child knows what to expect. And there's safety in that, there's freedom in that, isn't there? So that can look like a consistent way of entering. There might be a blanket, and we take off our shoes and we enter it together. It's a consistent way of beginning. That might be turning on a battery powered candle, and inviting the child to do that as a reminder that love is always with us. It can be some patterns of engaging, picking a picture for the altar that represents what the child feels or likes or longs for that day. It might be telling a story about truth or beauty or goodness, and ways of responding to that story and going further into it, like the responding might be using prayer beads. It might be making a drawing. It might be blowing bubbles to pray their prayers silently to God. And then a consistent way of ending, which it includes turning off the candle for that day and some form of a blessing. We like to use blessing balm, where we make a circle and the sign of the cross and give a blessing. A blessing that I like to offer is saying the name of the child. You are loved by God, seen by God, known by God, never alone. And I mix up the order of that sometimes, but some blessing like that the child begins to know and learn to expect, and that's something they take with them, right? Those words of blessing seep into heart and soul and mind, and can be a way of the Spirit accompanying them out into the world as they go. I love this quote by Rachel Held Evans. This was something that Flo quoted in her paper. Those who say that having childlike faith means not asking questions haven't met too many children. And so cultivating welcome for all kinds of questions, cultivating that capacity in ourselves is such a holy invitation as we continue in this work. And here's Flo's quote: Jesus dignified children with a blessing, honoring them, telling them that they were already worthy. I'm adding that word already, that they were worthy, that people should know becoming like them. Let me try that again. That people should become like them if they want to know and receive the kingdom. Can you imagine the children hearing that from Jesus? These adults who were trying to keep you out of this circle, to keep you at the margins, they need to know they actually need to become like you if they want to know the kingdom. And what is it for children today to hear that? Part of the way that we tend to power and keeping it, cultivating rightly ordered power is our support community. So this starts with our own spiritual director, is so vital. We've talked about this, and you have no doubt experienced it. Your childhood self gets stirred and surfaced as you read about and learn about these things for good, when you realize, oh, God was with me in ways that maybe I didn't even notice when I was a child, but I can see it now looking back. Or it might be griefs. Oh, I was not held, I was not accompanied, I was not heard in this moment when I really needed to be as a child. So these things will get stirred up and do get stirred up. And so cultivating kindness, and also ways to metabolize and process those things. So bring those things to your spiritual director and those conversations that you have with them. Bring them to your supervisor. Once you leave this class, as you continue to meet with children, it's part of your faithfulness that you will have a supervisor to process, to celebrate and savor, and to be in right accountability and community. For this class and perhaps beyond, your support is found in your supervision group, your peer supervision group, as you learn together. And you've already had a little taste of this, of hearing from your community and realizing, oh, I had that question too. Or, boy, I wouldn't have thought of approaching it that way. What wisdom that I'll take and practice for myself. So there's that collaboration and that mutuality that happens among peers. And sometimes support will look like a therapist or a coach or a pastoral counselor or other helping ministers. This is not weakness, but the best kind of strength, right? I often will say that I am so thankful for my therapist, and I'm so thankful for my spiritual director in different ways, but both so good, so helpful, so necessary to my own faithfulness, to my beloved soul, for its own sake, and to those that I accompany in my community and my family. And I'll add here that as you seek out, your spiritual director, your supervisor, your peer support, others, to have an ear tuned toward seeking at least some who are outside of your immediate circle, to get a different perspective, to get a light coming from another angle, can be really your faithfulness, and really wise and simply delightful, just to have added perspective. Yeah. As you continue to consider the questions, I'll just name these. Know that you'll have them in the slides, rather on the course site. You'll have the slides on the course site to return to as you need. So questions around power that can be wise to ask. To what degree was there an ego need at work when I decided to step into this training? Where do you feel fragile right now? Are there areas where I feel powerless or overlooked? What was my relationship like with my caregivers? when I was young. To what degree did sort of raw curiosity for spiritual experience move me toward this training? How did my life experience influence the direction of my choices? How is my story at play here? What happens when I recognize that others attribute power to me? What happens in me? What other questions come to mind when you think about the balance of power and humility in your life? And what are patterns of compulsion in your life? What are ways that you avoid things that are in shadow or things that are hidden? So, asking those questions, going kindly, going gently, and going faithfully and honestly. And recognizing there aren't right or wrong answers. This is not an invitation um, to undo shame, but it is an invitation to rightly consider and to begin to move toward more wholeness and more shalom. That you see that word in my chalkboard, perhaps behind me. It's one I'm living with this month. More wholeness, right? More spaciousness. So we do our inner work. We set ourselves aside to make space for the child. We keep confidences and safe space. So we aren't telling these stories. We're keeping them safe. We're preserving them. We're bearing witness. We bring them with confidentiality to supervision, but we bring them into the light if outside help is needed, if safety concerns become a question. But otherwise, we're keeping confidences and we're pacing with the child. We're staying at their elbow, neither moving ahead of them or lagging behind. And this takes some resilience. This takes some flexibility on our part. We may find that we're having to pick up the pace and move along to stay at their elbow, or other times we may find, oh, it's time to slow down to stay with them, but we keep our ear and eye and soul tuned. And then here's that rightly ordered power. We hold center. We preserve the boundaries and safety of the space. And sometimes that looks like keeping time. Like, oh, our time is coming to an end for today, but we'll have a chance to talk again. Sometimes it's inviting a modulation of the response if the child becomes overwhelmed. We we help them return to center in such moments, and we'll talk more in coming weeks about ways of doing that. There are two primary movements to kind of form a framework of your listening presence. First is recognizing, and that's making space for the child to recognize their own voice, not their parents' voice or their siblings' voice or their teacher's voice, their own unique God-given voice, and the voice within them, the Imago Dei, the one who longed them into being, that deposit is within, and it we don't need to impart that to the children that we meet with. We simply give them room to recognize it, an opportunity to recognize it. And then once that has happened, we get to invite them to respond to that. We make space for the child to respond to who and what they recognize. And it doesn't always go in this order. Sometimes, several things can be happening at once, but keeping those movements in mind is a helpful framework. Recognize and then respond. And that happens as we offer spacious presence. We're offering generous listening until there are no more words and silence arrives. So we avoid interrupting or interjecting, and we even leave a couple of breaths to make sure there's not anything else that wants to be said. And then and we acknowledge our role. We embrace our role as witness. We aren't there to create, we are there to bear witness. And then we affirm the child, empower them to hear themselves. So we do that by kind of mirroring and simply by our generous, gentle listening presence. We close our mouths and simply listen with loving attention. So you can mirror some simple tools to do that. Is we can mirror to them as we're noticing what they recognize. We can notice words or images that are weighty, right? Ones that have that little bit extra importance, and mirror those back. Oh, you felt safe then. Oh, you felt really disappointed when you didn't make the team. Oh, you felt excited when that special person was coming to visit. So we can mirror words that have extra weight. And then we can notice kind of moments of contrast, similarities, or where there's woven threads, and help them notice those connections and shine a light on them. We can paraphrase a little bit. Are you saying that you were really sad when you had to leave the beach, and you felt that deep sadness? And that gives the chance to say, yeah, that's right. Or it gives the child the chance to say, actually, I was sad, but then I realized that I had that birthday party the next day, and so I that sadness kind of moved past, and I felt some anticipation again. So it gives the child a chance to say, "That's right," or "No, not exactly." Right? And you can give kind of a summary of the story at that point. Help the child hear themselves. uh, this can be so helpful with adult directees, and it can absolutely translates with children. Just a brief summary of, yeah, that is what I just said. Yeah, and kind of hearing it um, mirrored back. We'll talk briefly about the dimensions of the self in just a moment. I'm going to open up for some questions and wonderings. So if you haven't begun to sort of articulate those mentally, know that here's your moment to do so. Um, so dimensions of the self. The For children, for adults, let me do it the reverse. For us, we are sitting here in our chairs or couches or cushions, and we've been sitting here for almost an hour, and you may have totally tuned out your physical body. You may have forgotten about your palm that was resting up or down, right? And so, because as adults, we can focus on our heads and on the paper in front of us where we're taking notes, and tune out our to-do list for the moment, perhaps our tummy rumbling, things that we were praying about before. But a child, that's not the case for a child. They are bring their whole selves. They haven't kind of learned to compartmentalize. That's not developmentally possible for them yet. So what they bring to spiritual accompaniment conversations is all of themselves. And that includes their mind, their thoughts and their feelings. It includes their spirit, their heart, their will, their reality of being made in God's image, their inner authority. They bring their social context, their their caregivers, any siblings, their friends, their community, their school, what they hear there. They bring their physical body, um, uh, which might be wiggly, it might be still, it might be tired, it might be activated, it might be hungry, all of those things. Now, of course, as we sit with adults and directees, all of these things are true, but they are present in a different way when we accompany children. There's not one that's more sacred than the other. And so cultivating a more holistic attention and a perspective that all of this is content, all of this is something that is possible to recognize. It's a way that God may be speaking, or their true self may be speaking. Oh, I noticed you felt really wiggly as you talked about that story. What do you think that's about? Or I noticed your shoulders kind of dropped when you told that story. What's happening there? So what we'll do now, well, we will next week we're going to pick up these touch points of longing and of recognition. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because this is a lot of words. And I want to invite you to just kind of return to this space and notice notice what questions have surfaced for you. Notice what you want to reflect on a little bit. You can feel free to write it in the chat, and you can feel free to unmute yourself.
Hey, Tara.
Hi,
Um,
Rachel.
I'm wondering, I had a parent actually ask me this week, like, if the child asks questions, are you going to answer their questions?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I just am wondering how you would respond to that.
Mm, Great, fantastic question. Thank you, Rachel. I can offer something, but Ellie, Kaisa, Julia, I want to invite you to respond to that if you'd like to. Do we answer questions that the children have?
There's so many types of questions, aren't they? Like, what if they ask you, how old are you? Or is that really God? And say,
Mm,
well, what do you think? And kind of get them thinking and pondering about the question. Or if it's a question for God, let's ask God about that. You know,
mhm,
so, but from a parent's perspective, I might just say, well, it's not really teaching, it's really listening. And if they have questions, we would explore them together, something like that.
mhm. Yeah,
That's
thank you, Ellie.
one answer.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so inviting the child to engage the question is part of the posture. And I would say an exception to that would be perhaps if we heard a child saying, oh, so, something that is harmful for the child to believe, like, oh, God is mean, God wants to hurt people, that's where we might gently you bring our power back online and say, I'm not sure that's true about God. Let's wonder together about that. Does that make sense? Yeah. I see a question, Jennifer. Thank you. Can Kaisa, can you share your opening activity? Can we upload that to the course site?
Sure, I can do that. Can I add something about Rachel's question?
Please do.
Yes, I think that's really it's very good question in relation to power in this conversation, and it kind of the two threads that both Ellie and Tara are addressing, like the how I see the thread of the parental, like is this a power concern for the parent? Do they have theological or psychological insecurities or felt unsafety about this relationship that they're inquiring and trying to gain more safety for themselves? So I think it requires a bit of engagement and openness and gentleness and discernment how to engage with a parent depending on the relationship that you have with the parent and where they come from. And with the child too, I feel like I have had, I think more than once, a child where I felt pretty strongly that the way that they were asking questions to me was a way of sorting out the power dynamic. Like, are you the only one who gets to ask questions? Because that the question asker holds power. And it really became in those, I'm not saying this is a rule. Again, it's a big point of discernment. But in that moment, it was clear to me that I needed to be answering the questions. Like she needed to have the permission to gain safety and power, sense of equality and power to just ask all kinds of questions. And actually, I start sessions with kids with like both ways. You get to ask one question, I get to ask one question to really as a way of leveling that power, because the question asking can become, especially with older kids, kind of like teachers ask questions. That they hold power, they want answers, and I need to give answers. Go on, deliver. So yeah, I think it's a very, very good question. And I 100% agree with what Tara and Ellie said, but just to bring that little memory that comes to me too, that there is that way of to some children to kind of test that who is in charge here. Do I get there? So is this really my time? Well, I would like to know what you think about this. Why do you get to hear what I made my point, I think. But ask clarification if I didn't, or add, or all that. Thank you.
Oh, Kaisa, thank you for that wisdom. So important. Question asking is a kind of power, isn't it? Yeah. So good. This is why we have a team. We get to, yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? Probably of Julia, since you're a children's ministry person, Julia. Like being a teacher, the children know that I like questions and they will ask me questions. And so I have sort of compartmentalized like that's a great question. You can ask me on Sunday or something, and then I can give you a Bible verse or something that can answer this question for you. But I just try to say things like, God is with us while we question, like God is here. I wonder. So I'm like, that's a great question. So anyway, I'm wondering, Julia, if you have this thing also where the children will ask you things, and then is it appropriate to answer their question on a Sunday morning separately out of session?
Great question, Barbara. Thanks.
I'm struggling a little bit with the question because our Sunday school program always turns the question back to the circle to allow the circle to discern the question. So if a child, even in the circle on Sunday morning, asks a question, we allow the circle, because it's godly play, to offer the answers, the potential answers, and then so I haven't actually used that sort of pattern. And because of that, in directing, it's really natural to let the child then wonder about the question they have. And I've had many times where I've just had to not pretend and admit I don't know
Mhm.
and just offer that as well. Many times. Oh, I don't know that. Or even just, I wonder if that's a mystery. So, and then discerning, can the child hold the question? Like, is it the right time for this question for this child to have an answer, or to just let them live in the mystery of their question for a while? So there's that as well.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's helpful, Barbara. I'm sorry.
Yes, that gives me lots of information about my question and my asking and your answer. So thank you.
Mhm. Oh, that's good. That's so good. And can I just say, there is a time to say, um, to again, to answer the question. My understanding is this. I could be wrong, but this is how I understand that to work. What do you think about that? Something like that. Because again, um, to Kaisa's point, asking questions can be a way, uh, giving the child the power to ask a question and we respond to it can be a way of handing power back to the child. And again, there's so much mystery here, isn't there? There's so much discernment that's happening. Um, let's go ahead and take a break now. And we'll come back at 15 after the hour, and you will be in your supervision groups at that time. Yeah, so come back at 15 after the hour and enter your supervision groups.
Interactions. So I'm going to start over. I hope you've taken a look at Lacey's video answering your questions from her lecture last week. It's just about 10 minutes long and it's on the website. So if you have any trouble accessing that, let us know. There's several treasures and truths in there that are super helpful in this process. And we're not going to be meeting for the next 2 Tuesdays, so you'll have plenty of time to meet with children and write up your reflections. And I want to tell you a little bit about the readings, which are a bit lighter during this time. So we have chapter 4 in Spiritual Conversations with Children, which is on the gift of eyes and ears and holy listening. And I'm going to be leading our conversation about that at our next meeting. And the other reading that we have for this week is Making Heartbread by the Lins. And this is a really lovely book about the examen for children. A little bit of trivia about the authors. Dennis and Sheila Lynn are married, and Matthew and Dennis are brothers. And the three of them have practiced the examen and taught it for many years. So you might be familiar with this other book, which is not in your assignment, Sleeping with Bread, which is a similar book for adults, which I've loved for many years. And I want to encourage you to write in your reading logs. I can't tell you how invaluable this is in terms of sort of cementing in your brain what you're learning through the reading. And if you haven't already, please know that you're welcome to join the Spiritual Accompaniment with Children 2025 WhatsApp chat. And if you haven't received an invitation to that, please contact me via email. So, is that clear and straightforward to you all? Take this hat off.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie.
And can I end with a blessing, or is there anything else that needs to be said?
I'm going to insert one quick thing and then we can end with a blessing. we didn't quite get through all that was all of the teaching slides, but we're close to the end, but not quite there. Since we've got a break, rather than having this long delay before we return and cutting into what Ellie has to share, I'm gonna record about a 10-minute thing that I'll add to the course site. So be watching for that to be added, and I'll add it to this week's lesson. So you'll have this video recording, and then you'll have a separate one that you can access as you desire. I'll also upload the slides. Trust you can always count on those slides being added. So just that bit of housekeeping there. I'm just thinking about what would preserve your flow, and I think that's going to be best. So that's all I have. And anything else from any of you before Ellie gives a blessing?
Thank you, Tara. That's wonderful. Okay, everybody. Tara and Mary, Louise, Annalise, Kaisa, Angie, Bethany, Rebecca, Lori, Marie, Julie, Julia, Barbara, Beth, Jen, Catherine, Rachel, Ruthie, Cara, and Czech. May you rest in the fact that you are seen, safe, and secure in the Trinitarian community of love. And may you be soothed by that assurance until we meet again. God bless you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you all. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. So appreciate you the way you all answered questions and added wisdom. Such a grace. Such a grace. And Kaisa, what a lovely beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Love that.
Yes.
I've used actually the hands with the little different promptings and wordings with kids a lot in direction.
Yeah.
So sometimes it fills the whole session that they just, draw their hand and they keep writing things on
I love
their hands of like what they, they say concerns and then things. I always change the questions up and I never remember what I have done. So I'm always nervous when people are like, can we get that thing? I was like, I have no idea what I said. Like, sure, you can get it.
You can watch the video.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
wow.
God.